Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It is good to be with you today. Welcome to our April webinar. This month, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity best practices. I'm Jeremy Cherney. I'm the president and founder of Tobin Solutions, and I'm just delighted to be with you today. Um, some of you have been here before. I see some familiar names, so thanks for coming back. Some of you, I don't know if I've seen you before, so welcome. Um, with any of our webinars at Tobin Solutions, we have a commitment to our clients of plain language communication and education. So that's part of what today is. And with any time you have education coming your way, what's a good headspace to be in is maybe a headspace of curiosity and discovery. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity today. We're going to be talking about risks. We're going to be talking about some mitigations around that. And there's an opportunity for questions and answers along the way. And at the end, there'll be some time for questions as well. So, um, what this is really about is to discover your blind spots. There's things you know about security, and there's things you don't know about security. And there's things you just don't know what you don't know, kind of a blind spot, like a truck in the side view mirror, kind of a blind spot. About your security posture. Now, when I look at the names here, I see a number of you have been here before, maybe some new people. And like any webinar, maybe you've got this kind of running in the corner of your screen while you're doing some other work, checking some emails, things like that. Nothing wrong with that. But today I really invite you to listen a different way. Like listen a different way, like maybe you've been on a plane before and you're on the plane and you're flying along and the flight attendant comes out and maybe says, hey, go back in your seat, buckle up, kind of a thing, fasten your seatbelts. We all kind of do that, or they're doing their little presentation of their safety presentation about what to do, if there's an issue in the plane or something like that. And a lot of times we listen to those kind of like we've heard them before. We've heard them before. Maybe we're doing other stuff while we're doing that. Now imagine you're in the middle of a flight and you look up front and the door of the cabin opens up and the captain comes out. And the captain says, look, you need to put your safety belts on, put your seat belts in, fasten up, buckle up. That's how I'd like you to listen today. Listen today like this really matters. So we're going to jump into some security topics here. We got to give you a little of a background on what security is. What do we mean when we're talking about security? In the world of security, we look at the CIA triad: confidentiality, who can access your data, and how do we control that? Integrity: is your data correct? Has it been corrupted in any way? And availability, which a lot of people do not always think about when it comes to security. But if your data can't be accessed, as in our world, 100% a security event. So any breach of confidentiality or integrity or availability, or one or more of those in any way, is what we consider a security breach. And we'll be talking about different ways that happens. I want you to understand how enormous this problem is. Everybody's getting hit in one way or another. When I say that, I mean, look at some of these companies that are hit. Okta is a security company. Microsoft has been recently attacked by Russian hackers stealing government emails. This is at Microsoft at the highest levels. Palo Alto Networks recently, big flaw in their PAN operating system. It's under current attack. And, most of you don't have that. It's more of an enterprise thing. It's their Global Protect product. So their Global Protect product is now a source of actually attacking the inside of everybody's network that might be using that. So this is a big challenge. Big companies with big budgets and big brains and lots of security researchers are failing, reliably failing. This is not just those. You can do searching on Google, you do searching on Apple, you do searching on Amazon. All of those have had all kinds of security breaches. So the big takeaway from here is no one's immune. We hear that a lot, and it's a myth. People say, well, I don't have to worry about it. Microsoft has my back or Apple has my back. And fundamentally, they're trying, but they're failing. There's routinely new issues, big security flaws, zero-day vulnerabilities, data exfiltration, all kinds of things that are going on with the big companies. So I just want you to understand how big the challenge is and why it's so important to be doing the right things and doing them reliably. So today we're going to be talking about best practices of things you can do to keep your systems as secure as possible, and not just keep them as secure as possible, but fundamentally be able to recover if and when it happens. So the first thing, and this may seem a little bit counterintuitive since you're here to listen to me, is trust no one. That is, we just can't count on anything being safe and secure anymore. Your phone, your applications, the services you use, because reliably, week after week, month after month, year after year, there are major security flaws being found. Some of them are very complex to exploit. Some of them are trivial to exploit. So you just can't count on anything, even if it's on the inside of your network. We always worry about what's happening outside our network. On the inside, you have to worry just as much. Any application you use, hey, I'm going to download the new version of some application that I use regularly. Oh, look, there was compromised in some way through a supply chain attack. So you just can't trust anything. It's not like, be paranoid, maybe a little paranoid, but definitely skeptical and definitely verify everything that you have, constantly keeping it up to date, monitored, and always seeking to reduce your attack surface by limiting some of the exposure that you have. It's a tough way to be, it's one of the things that, I spend a lot of time thinking about these things. Sometimes it keeps me up at night. It may be keeping you up at night. And it's not just a, a problem that, is a someday thing. It's not just something that, only certain people are getting hit. It is just everywhere and it's reliable. So you want to be taking action on today. That's why I'm encouraging you to listen differently than you've ever listened to before. One of the biggest things we have to worry about is ransomware. It's still a big deal. In some cases, it's decreased. In some cases, it's increased. This is an old screen, but I just love it because it's just so great in a number of ways. Ransomware, that's where someone installs some software. Maybe they're on a website and, or they get an email for something and they make some bad moves and they encrypt, they get the ransomware on their system. Ransomware is malware. It's software that runs on your computer. And what it does, it locks up all your data. It encrypts it such that only they can decrypt it. And they start this lovely countdown timer to scare you. They tell you how long it's going to take. They tell you how much it's going to be. And this is a really old one because it's got Bitcoin. $300 worth of Bitcoin used to be the type of ransom they were asking for back then. Now it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Millions are being paid out to these ransomware people. So it's very lucrative for them, and they can do it without ever stepping foot on US soil. A lot of these are happening from Russia and China and North Korea, but it's almost so trivial these days that almost anyone can do it. And if someone just sets their skills and abilities on making their money this way in life, be very wary. You also want to get that they're very sophisticated. They're very well organized. Look, oops, what happened? How can I recover my files? These ransomware companies, and I call them companies, they're organizations, they have good customer service. They want to make sure they're going to get paid. They want to make sure you know how to do this so that they can get paid. It's the kind of thing that is scary in the sense of how good they are at it. This isn't just some random criminal, kind of smash and grab kind of window thing. These are sophisticated, very intelligent people, and it's happening at the highest levels of crime syndicates and all of that. So they're doing two things. They're either trying to lock up your data so that you can't get it, but people have been following the ransomware thing for a while, and we've put in new systems for our clients that work very effectively at being able to recover from ransomware. Um, so these guys got smart. They also not only lock up the data, they take a copy of it. It's called data exfiltration. So you might say, hey, we don't have to worry about this. We got a great backup and disaster recovery solution. We got cyber. We can recover in a day. We're good. And they'll say, well, okay, but we also took all your data and we're going to release it on the internet. Now, that may or may not be a problem for you. Depends what you do. If you've got any kind of confidential information, if you've got any kind of intellectual property, you have contracts, anything like that, they will absolutely put that out there if you don't pay. So it's something to worry about. It's something to be considering inside of all this, because having the technology alone to protect you is not sufficient. Now, who's doing this? It depends. Depends who you are. It depends who they are. In some cases, it might be the malicious insider person. It could actually be someone inside your office doing something. That's definitely a concern. It could be somebody that's taking data because they're being let go, or they're going to start their own business or something like that. Um, there's cyber terrorists. There's state-sponsored um, threats out there. The ones that attacked Microsoft came likely from Russia, and Russia's, by and large, the Russian government's pretty cool with anybody on Russian soil that wants to attack the U.S. on their own. They're pretty cool with that. So you get hacktivists, people that are attacking because of social causes. Organized cybercrime is probably the biggest one you may run into, which is people want to extort you for money. So it's all over. It's lots of people. It's that state-sponsored stuff. There you're talking about you know countries with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to spend on this kind of a thing. Um, I think at one point, North Korea, trying to raise money for their society, is doing a lot of this, taking those ransom and using it to fund the country. So, when you think about what kind of shot you got out there, you got big people, very sophisticated, coming after you. And when I say they're coming after you, they're probably not coming after you directly, but you've got computers, you probably have cyber insurance, you probably got some money, and they want that. And they're working together. It used to be, there'd be the ransomware gang and they would kind of handle everything start to finish. But now they're specializing like any good business. So you have some that specialize in getting into the business. They might be the ones that a ransomware, they say, well, we want to do the ransomware part of the business. That's really our core niche product we have. But, in our world, in decentralization, we really like to outsource our initial attack and entry into the system. So we're going to work with another provider to do that. There's ransomware as a service. There's sophisticated websites out there where you can say, hey, here's $500, here's $1,000, go attack somebody. And then they have affiliate networks. So they'll have the ransomware gang will then have affiliates below them. And for every successful attack they get a cut. And then the head ransomware company gets a cut. Capitalism, we know, can do a lot of things, can move and grow things and make big things, including big crime. They're getting very sophisticated, very organized, and it's a big challenge. So really what I want you to get is your security is only as good as your weakest link. You really, truly, us, the government, Microsoft, Palo Alto, Apple, Google, they have to be right 100% of the time. And they're not. No one can be. And the hackers just need to get through once. So I assert it's not if, but when and how bad. And I guarantee each one of you is under attack right now. If I were to go look at your firewall logs, you would see people trying to attack you that way. If I would go look at your email logs, I would see people trying to attack you that way. So you may not have clicked on it. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But you're constantly under attack, and it's just a matter of time before someone gets through. So how do you handle that? What I really want you to get is that security is a process, not a product. There's products that we sell and that other people sell, antivirus and endpoint detection and response and things like that. Um, and that's, kind of table stakes these days. But, what I would assert is it's not just what you get, it's who's doing it and how they're doing it that makes the difference. Who's doing it and how they're doing it makes all the difference because it's really a process. This stuff is not set it and forget it. It's complex. It's inconvenient. It gets in the way sometimes. It causes other issues. It's a big challenge. And if it's not done right, you leave yourself open to vulnerabilities. So today we're focusing on what we call the best practices. These are these procedures that are shown by research and experience to produce optimal results and is established or proposes a standard suitable for widespread adoption. That's what I'm proposing these best practices are that I'm going to share with you. Now, we talked about blind spots before, and really the best way you're ever going to know what kind of blind spots you have is to have some kind of a security assessment. A light one, a deep one, a complex one. There's different levels of them, but you really want to understand what have you got? What are those assets you're trying to protect? What are the hardware and software and cloud services and things that make up your systems? Are you following best practices? Are you doing vulnerability testing? Are you looking at a report fundamentally to uncover those blind spots? So we recommend everybody have some level of a cybersecurity assessment to understand what their real risks are. And when you do an assessment, by and large, some of the things I'll be pointing out are things that often show up on the assessment. This is the first one. You all really, really need good, sufficient cyber liability insurance. Because like I said, it's not if, but when and how bad. We had a client that had a simple phishing scam where somebody did something. They probably spent about $50,000 between IT services and legal fees and things like that. That's a small incident. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. It's very disruptive. And depending how bad it is, could be business impacting, could be customer impacting for you. So you really want to check with your cyber liability company and make sure you have sufficient insurance to cover your business. Like I said, even a small attack could be $50,000. So you want to have at least 100,000. Millions are probably more common these days because sometimes that's what the ransomware people are requesting. So call your insurance agent today. If you need help finding one, let us know. But you want to really find out what you've got, what kind of coverage you've got, what kind you need. They'll have a questionnaire for you because they don't just, sometimes they still kind of sign up, but most are not now. Most are saying, well, okay, we'll cover you and you need to show us that you're doing and following best practices, or we're not going to cover you, or we're going to reduce any payouts. And it's really important to be following those provisions of your policy. We saw a recent example with one of our clients that had a Chubb insurance policy, $2 million coverage policy, pretty solid. However, there's caveats in there. One of their caveats is whether systems are being patched and updated within a proper time frame. Remember I was talking about earlier how some of these companies like Palo Alto and things are getting hacked and that. A lot of times the fix is to patch the software. And for sometimes when people are getting hit, they're getting hit with existing known issues that had they patched, it would have been taken care of. So the insurance company is now limiting the payout. If you don't patch things within a certain time frame, it keeps decreasing the amount of payout that the insurance company will provide. And in that example I gave you before with the $2 million policy, after a period of time, which I think might be 6 months, if you've got systems that are not patched and have a known exploit that's over 6 months old and you haven't patched it, they can reduce that payout down to $100,000. So if you were counting on that $2 million, because that's what you really needed for your business, you could be in a world of hurt. So find out what your insurance needs are, find out what the um, covenants are and what the compliance needs are for that so you can be in compliance. Um, that's the worst case scenario if we have to go to your insurance. And even if we have to go to your insurance, if you are attacked and in trouble, how do we get you back up and running? This is where we start talking about the next level is business continuity and disaster recovery. You want to know that even if you have insurance, look, you might want to get paid out. That's great. But who wants to be down for 1, 2, 3 weeks or a month? That can still be devastating reputation wise. You may get whole, but maybe not. So there's two concepts we want to talk about, which is business continuity, and that's your plan to keep your business running while your systems are down. And some of you don't have this, and we recommend you do because systems go down just for whatever reason, different issues, different problems. But when they're down for a cyber event, it could be hours, days, weeks. There was an issue a couple of years ago with a company that makes a disaster recovery product, and some of their customers were down for over 30 days before they could recover. 30 days. And then getting it back up and running. That's the disaster recovery process. The disaster happens, the security event happens. How do you keep your business running? And how do we get you back up after, and how quickly we can get you back up after that disaster? And it could be a cyber attack, but it could be a physical attack. It could be accidental, all kinds of reasons that could be happening. We're in Wisconsin. We get all kinds of weather events. Joplin, Missouri. They had a tornado in March of 2011. This is a before and after picture of about 30 seconds. One is the before the tornado and one is after the tornado. I mean, it's just complete devastation. It's tragic. And from an IT perspective, it could be devastating if your systems and your business is inside that path. And the weather events, seem to be getting stronger and more frequent and more devastating, whether it's freezing, tornadoes, freezing rain, drought, wildfires. I mean, there's so many things that, we see on the news that are, and people are experiencing in real life. Now, some of you think, hey, well, Jeremy, that's okay. I don't have to worry about that tornado because I've got all my stuff in the cloud. And while that is a good practice, and that's where the world is moving for a lot of things, is to put data in the cloud for a variety of reasons. Guess what? You're not without responsibility here. And in fact, you have complete 100% responsibility for your information and data, for all your devices, for your accounts, and even how you manage those accounts with your infrastructure if you use the cloud. And if you read your terms of service, when you sign up for any of those services, Microsoft, Google, any of them, you're going to find very similar language. They have your back in some ways. This is not an area where they're going to say, we got this for you. This is something you want to know what you've got, where your data is, how it's being protected, what you expect, how do you expect to recover? Because guess what? Those data centers burn down. A few years ago, there was a big battery fire, or a fire caused by a battery in a data center in Europe, and thousands of sites and subsites were impacted. And some of these websites and services you use are not well designed because they fall into the myth of, oh, I'm in the cloud too. I've got it at a big data center, so I should be okay. But you still have to follow best practices when you design your systems, even if you store them in the cloud. You still need backup and disaster recovery and insurance and redundancy and all those things. And a lot of them don't have that. Or when they find out, when it comes time that they didn't have it, it ends up being a big surprise, but not astonished. So just because you have your data in a cloud, do not assume it's all just going to be good to go. So this is really a business conversation. There's a security piece about how we secure the systems and how we would recover and all of that, but a lot of it's driven by your business policies. what's important to you. And why I say that is because some of these, all of these technologies, all these security technologies have a cost. And there's different systems that do, there's one level of backup that may cost you $100 a month, and there's a level of backup and disaster recovery that may be costing you $1,000 a month. A big difference in price. What is the difference? It could be around some of these three-letter acronyms here. And this is something you really want to have a conversation with your IT provider about what your expectations are. Because most people's expectations are vastly blown out of the water when the disaster actually happens. Those companies that were down for 30 days, that was not on their radar that they were going to be down for 30 days. So you want to know, what is your recovery time objective? In general, for most disasters, how quickly do you need to be back up and running? If you've got your accounting system, your ERP system, your document management system, whatever those business applications you use, when they're down, how quickly do they need to be back up and running? That is what is called your recovery time objective. So in that middle star, that security event, the time starts ticking. Bam, tornado. Bam, ransomware. Clock starts going. How quickly do you need to be back up and running? Minutes? Hours? Days? Weeks? Months? It really depends. And some businesses are all over the place. We've had some clients say, look, we can't be down for more than 4 hours. We have some saying, hey, we can be down for a week. And we really encourage you to really look at that when you say that and be really, really clear. Because when you say you can be down for a week and that's how your systems are designed, that should be your expectation. And pressure to have it come up faster than a week is maybe a little unreasonable. It's understandable, but maybe a little unreasonable when you said it could be a week. So this is where you really want to know, what are your expectations around that? And don't think like best case scenario, think worst case scenario. If you're an accountant and tax preparer, think tax season. If you're seasonal and it's your busy season, that's the time you want to think, what is your RTO? Another issue with this is sometimes the systems are infected for days or weeks or months before the attack actually happens. It used to be the ransomware, is kind of a grab and dash kind of thing. They would jump in, attack, get it, and go out. Now, in some cases, you're finding things they've been in the systems for days, weeks, months. And if you have to recover the systems, you need to be able to potentially bring them back to a pre-infected state. So if they've been in the system for a month, you might need to recover your data from more than a month. So if your recovery point objective is, say, 2 weeks, you may be out of luck. We may have to rebuild your systems because we don't have a good backup pre-attack. And then the last one is the MTD, the maximum tolerable downtime. This is the big, major, you're down hard, that 30-day something. That's a whole other issue. How long can you be down for that? That's where you really want to know you've got good insurance for that. You've got a good plan. That's where your business continuity plan comes in. Because if you are going to be down, if you say, look, we can't be down for more than, 2 weeks, fine, that's your MTD. But then how are you going to operate for 2 weeks while the systems are being recovered and built? What are you going to do? Same thing in the past. How far back do we need to go? So you want to be putting together a process here. You want to be thinking about this. This is where we say it's a product. It's a process rather, not a product, right? A lot of you have a backup solution, but it's not just that. We have clients where we've run through the disaster recovery test and we've done a playbook for them where we put together exactly how they need to recover and who needs to get called and things like that. And sometimes things come up, like we restored their systems to the cloud and all of that works, but the application software they used has a special license key that recognized that it was no longer running on its home server and it thinks it's being pirated, so it doesn't work. And now we need to contact the customer or the company to get a new license key. That can take time sometimes, especially if you're talking about over a weekend or something like that. There's all these things that come up. So you want to really get clear. You want to get your expectations set. That's those 3-letter acronyms. You want to get your disaster recovery plan. And what you mean by a plan is it's actually written. We actually write it down. For our clients where we do this, we have a multi-page disaster recovery playbook. And then we actually test it. And then we encourage you to test it every year. We even, for some clients, we roll it into as a service as part of their managed services plan that we rerun their disaster recovery test every year. Because you want to know that it's up to date. Sometimes there's new technology that got added. Sometimes there's technology that went away. But you want to get that playbook, you want to test it, and you want to refresh and test. This is really for us, so critical as business owners because you've got the insurance, but you want to know that the backups and all of that are working as expected. This should be a really high priority to know as a business owner. For me, this is the kind of thing that's a sleep well at night kind of a thing. What keeps you up at night is not knowing, wondering, worried. Written disaster recovery plan showing that it was tested, that you all verified it. We actually have our clients log in to the cloud and run their applications and verify that it's got all the current data. Tremendous, tremendous peace of mind comes from that. Strongly encouraged. And then, we're going to go into deep dive on this, but, this is fundamentally a basic, how do you do a continuity planning? This can take a lot more time to really flesh this out, but fundamentally, these are the steps. How are you going to run your business while the systems are being recovered? How do you serve your customer? How do you pay your team? How do you buy product? Whatever those things are that are critical, you want to have a plan for it. And this could also be not just if you have an attack. What if one of your critical suppliers is under attack and they cannot deliver the product to you? Their cyber liability event now becomes your problem. You might be asking some of your suppliers, what are they doing around security if they're critical? Are they following best practices? Feel free to invite them to a webinar for a future Tobin webinar on this, or to see the video on this if they've got some questions. But what are they doing? We're not just in isolation anymore, right? We've got partners, we've got services. Any one of those could potentially be attacked and cause you an outage, even if you weren't the one that was specifically hit. So if you got some questions on the continuity planning, we can talk offline on that. So we talked about your insurance. We talked about your disaster recovery test to know that, you've got insurance if the worst case comes. You've got a good backup and disaster recovery plan so that you can recover when you need to. And then there's some other things you can do to prevent. So software patching, Windows, Microsoft Windows, iOS, OS 10, all of those applications you use, your QuickBooks on your workstation, the software you use in the cloud, any of those things. Even if you use a cloud application, there is software patching for that. It may not be under your control, but it's part of the system. And we mean by a patch is, these are the software updates. Here's what happens. Some hacker, or maybe a security researcher, discovers a vulnerability. When that vulnerability is ultimately known, usually a patch comes out if the company's still in business to make the patch. And that patch is a software update. And then we run those on your system, and we run them regularly and make sure that you're getting the latest and greatest update. And this is not just, Windows. This is all of Microsoft, Apple, Intuit, every application you use, even the little utilities you use, Adobe Reader. Had massive flaws for years and still is a big attack vector. So when someone comes out and says Adobe has a new flaw that's actively exploited when people receive a malicious PDF file in the email, because we all get those emails with PDFs all the time, right? Part of business. You could get hit. There's a stat, 70% of organizations that suffered a security breach said it was because of a vulnerability that was not patched. And as you recall from a few minutes ago when I mentioned the insurance company, Chubb, if you don't patch quickly enough, they will reduce the payout. They will reduce the payout. And it makes sense why, they're there to insure you, but not just unlimited liability for willy-nilly systems management. And some companies are just not great with this, or they have systems. We had a client recently, they're replacing their phone system, but their phone system was old, and their phone system was a server running software that was completely full of vulnerabilities because they were not patched, and they don't make patches for it anymore. So in that case, they have to replace their phone system. There's all kinds of places where this shows up. Equifax, big credit reporting agency, in March had hundreds of millions of records stolen. And there was a whole bunch of mistakes they made, but fundamentally, they had a consumer complaint web portal, basic web page to go complain, make consumer complaints. And that web portal is backed by some software. And that software head gets patched and updated. They didn't patch it. So once they got in there, they were able to use that, get in, and then laterally move through the network and do what they did. That's Equifax. I mean, it's a zillion-dollar company with zillion-dollar IT budgets. And all they did was not patch some software. And it wasn't like the patch wasn't available. They just didn't do it. Let's talk a little about passwords here and multi-factor. So actually, I think I'm going to do a survey here. Let me jump in with a survey. Let's see that. Well, let's see what you guys are doing on some of that stuff. Let's do a poll. Where do you think you're prepared? Where do you think you've been working on into your security? Please respond to the poll. People are working on passwords. It's good. A lot of people are working on passwords. That's looking good here. Another couple seconds to finish up. Last chance. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So a lot of you are working on passwords, which is great. Phishing and malware. So you guys are in action, which is really great. The insider threats, only one of you put that in there. What does that mean? Who's actively worrying about the team? And unfortunately, the insider threat also is sometimes somebody who's either, they got uh, paid off by some of these companies. There's indications of that where some people who work inside some of the organizations that are responsible for security are being paid off. At Colonial Pipeline in 2021, if you remember that in the summer, there was no oil flowing in the southeastern United States for a few days because Colonial Pipeline got hit and they didn't know what was going on, so they shut things down. And the pipeline was down for 7 days. Now that one is a big deal, right? No politicians like gas lines and and this one, there was probably some government intervention ultimately for them, but they did pay a ransomware. They did pay $4.4 million. And then they did get the keys because the ransomware people, uh, as awful as they are in what they're doing, they're ethical in the sense that they want to get paid. Like they know if they don't deliver the baby, you're not going to pay next time. So they need to do that. But it's not always a fast process to recover. That's where we get back into that business continuity and disaster recovery planning. So some ways to affect that. Had Colonial Pipeline had multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, they probably wouldn't have been attacked. I mean, they might have been attacked, but it would have been an unsuccessful attack. So we're all pretty familiar with this now, but we still see it where people do not have this enabled on certain systems. And it might be some of the cloud applications you use. Whether you're using the app on your phone or you're using a security key or some of the biometrics, you want to make sure that every account you have on every system is protected with MFA. And when I talk about protecting, I mean protecting all accounts everywhere. Where is your internet domain registered? Who registers your .com address or whatever? If that is attacked and you don't have proper MFA on your internet registrar and someone got the password from that, they could go in and do something with your email. They could take over your domain. Any of your cloud services, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, Amazon, I mean, everything you use, banking. But it's not just limited to those, your workstations, logging into your phone, logging into your desktop. Having that second factor is critical because sometimes they do get in the system. A password does get away. Somebody, falls for it and puts in their password. If you don't have a second factor authentication on your VPN, guess what? They're going to get in. And guess what? If they get the password, they're going to try it everywhere automatically. This is happening. So you want to enable this everywhere. Have something in place that you've got that second factor. It's getting much easier to do. It's much more commonplace. If you've got questions, let us know. Your phone provider, that's another one. Your mobile phone, because guess what? Sometimes your second factor is your phone. And there's been known incidents where people have taken over other people's phones and been able to get their 6-digit codes that get sent. Another best practice, get this done everywhere. Some of you may be familiar with the neighborhood watch concept, right? Group of people living in the same area. They want to make their neighborhood safer. They're going to work together. They're going to work with their local law enforcement to really reduce crime and improve their quality of life. And by and large, that stuff works, right? See something, say something, work together. There is no difference between that and what we want you to do around security awareness for your team. If you're not training them, if they're not clear, they're part of the solution. If they're not learning about this, if they're not going to see this presentation, if they're not going to get regular reminders, guess what's going to happen? They're probably going to fall for it. It still happens. We still get clients that fall for those phishing emails. And it's not that they're bad people or dumb people. It's just they're really good at it. These people, you can't imagine how good they are right now. And the velocity which happening and then there's just that combined with, oh, I'm trying to go on vacation. I got to finish these 10 things before I leave. Oh, wait, what's this email? Oh, this must be that change of address form I need to do. And they go do it, and suddenly they're attacked. And your business is now under attack. Now, instead of leaving for vacation, now you're dealing with a cyber incident. So please train your team. There's solutions out there for that. We have training solutions that are just great and they're fun and they're engaging and they don't take too much time and they're effective. They do reduce the amount of clicking that goes on because Again, with all the technology we've got and the best of this and that, stuff still gets through. So it's up to you and you and you and everyone on your team to make some good, solid decisions when it finally gets through on what to do. And that could be an email that comes through. It could be a phone call they receive that sounds exactly like you because we're getting into that world of AI. It could be all kinds of things going on that would just have them easily think that they're making the right move. And they're really good at it. They get us scared. They get us running into action. I mean, it's sad when you see it sometimes. You see, you've seen those things on the news where like the grandma got a call from their granddaughter saying they were in jail and please go bail me out and don't tell mom and dad because they'll be so upset. And then the next thing you know, the grandma's off transferring money to someone, thinking they're helping. And then it's almost invariably, they say as soon as they click the send, they're like, wait, what did I just do? These are very skilled con men or women, con people. They pretend to be someone you trust. They get that fear and urgency. And I'm sorry, human beings, we think we're really smart. We are easily and reliably fooled by optical illusions, by magic shows, by things we think we know. It's very easy. So with training and preparation, though, you start to bend the odds in your favor. And this is an old slide in the sense that, here's how you check, an email. And you look at it, you can see how there's typos, is this legit, whatever. There's still some of that, but it is getting way more sophisticated with artificial intelligence. It could, be if you've written anything, if you're the boss and you blogged something, they can actually go in and take your writing style and turn that into a style to send an email. You've got your team list on your website, who's who. They can make it sound exactly like it's legit. The AI is just getting so good. When I say good, I mean bad, bad, bad. And it's only getting better in the sense that it's getting more sophisticated and more talented. Now, in one hand, for business where we're using AI and things like that, that's great. But the attackers are using AI as well. They're much more sophisticated. They're using deep fakes, meaning they can grab all the copies of these YouTube from our YouTube website at Tobin and see all the webinars I put on and get a really good example of my voice and exactly the way I speak, my cadence, the words I use. And suddenly you're getting a call from me saying, hey, it's Jeremy from Tobin. Can you click on this link? I need you to install this software. Double check. Especially if it involves money. It's all about the Benjamins with this, right? I mean, sometimes they're just trying to attack you and take you down, and that's maybe the nation state stuff. They just announced, the FBI say that China, they're pretty clear that China is in our systems, in our big utility systems, and at any point in time could pull the trigger on some things. Are they going to do it? I don't know. That's that kind of thing. For most of you, we're talking about the money, money, money here. So anyone is asking for money, transferring money. If you get an email from a client saying, hey, start sending invoices here, or start sending payments there. If you get an email from one of your employees saying, hey, my bank changed, please start making my payroll deposits to this new bank. Check, double check. And don't just email them back. Make a phone call, verify, maybe even come up with a code word. And I'm very serious about that because the AI is going to be almost, for some of you, it's going to be indistinguishable from the person you think they are. It'll be indistinguishable enough that someone will take action. So anyone that's got money, you want to have a written process around this. Train your team what to do Anytime anything about money, where it's going, who's getting it, account numbers, addresses, any of that, and make sure. Passwords. Passwords are still a thing. In some cases, they're kind of going away for some services, which is not a bad thing. They're going away in different ways. Uh, and they're still a thing. And so you want good passwords and you want unique passwords. Remember what I said before, if a password gets away from you, the hacker's going to instantly, with a script, try that password in your email on every single service that's out there. It's trivial to go try to log into Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. It can be done in seconds or less. So if you've reused a password and you don't have multi-factor authentication on, guess what? Roku, those little devices you hook up to your TV to stream stuff, they just had a big attack. 500,000, I think, addresses and things got away, passwords. Those passwords were used anywhere. And sometimes we set those up a long time ago. So there's systems out there to help you generate passwords, store passwords securely, share your passwords among your team, to pull back passwords from people if they leave an organization. And it's not always about passwords anymore. There's different secrets now that people have. There's passphrases, there's passwords, there's security keys, there's security questions that get asked. All of that, we recommend being encrypted or stored in a way that's offline. And honestly, for some of you, even a book, writing it down isn't a bad idea, because at least, someone would have to have physical access to the book. You could be victim to a fire, but there's different systems you can do to make these things safe, and it's something you really want to get in action on. All right, encryption. We talked before about data exfiltration, right? The ransomers, the attackers are taking data off your system. So what happens when they take it off the system? What can they do with it? Well, it depends. If it's not encrypted, they can pretty much do what they want with it. They can read it, can share it, they can alter it. But if you actually have encryption in place and it's done properly, and you've encrypted things on your emails, where encrypted emails make sense, on your mobile devices, on your flash drives, on your backups, on the information you're sending and receiving, you want to make sure it's encrypted. And that's another thing that is often shows up on those security posture questionnaires. If any of you received a questionnaire from your insurance company, from a key business partner, from a key client saying, hey, tell me about your cybersecurity, because they want to know what their risks are. Because if you're critical on their team and you don't have good cyber security, you're a risk to their team. So encryption's critical. Another piece that's critical, and we're rounding into the end here, is principle of least privilege. What does that mean? Years and years ago, it was a best practice that, on your computer, everyone ran as an administrator. They could install software, they can do things. Nowadays, that is just a bad best practice. And because anyone that's an administrator can install any software, including malware, either intentionally or unintentionally. So you want to make sure that people only have access to what they need and what's required for their job. Another good example of this is to reduce your spread of attack. If a finance person doesn't need access to, let me flip it around. If a salesperson has access to the sales folder, that makes sense. If a salesperson also has access to the finance folder, that may not make sense, and if they don't need that. But if they actually have access to it and they're attacked, now not only have you lost your sales data, you've also potentially lost your finance data. So you want to restrict things. You want to create different levels of users where they only need what they need to do their job. On your accounting system, not everyone should be an administrator. I mean, you can, but the risk is everyone can do everything. So you want to start to, and the thing is, this is where it gets more complex and more inconvenient and more costly. And it is a best practice. You don't want to give people more keys to the kingdom than they need, because those with the most power can do the most damage intentionally or unintentionally. And this is all over the place. This is not just, this is on the software you use. This could be on applications, hardware. If you got questions on that, let us know. Can help you readjust your security. This is another example of why that's critical. A lot of people have these all-in-one printers, and those printers have built-in fax machines. You might still not even receive faxes, but you might have a fax number and it's still sitting out there. Well, in 2018, someone discovered that if you sent a malicious fax to one of these devices, you could take over that device. And because that printer was inside the network and not protected, they were able to laterally move inside the network. And then they used one of the tools. Our National Security Agency had a tool called Eternal Blue that got loose, and they used that to further penetrate, and then used another unpatched issue in Microsoft software to then get in. So it's complex. That's why it's not easy. And it takes something. Unfortunately, there's investments to be made in security, and some of you are making them and some of you are not. And we get that. But you want to be really clear with that security assessment what your risk is. It's a journey, not a destination. It takes time, it takes money. Sometimes it takes new process and procedure for your team. But it's an exercise you want to go through and keep chipping away at it. Compliance. Compliance with your cyber insurance, as I mentioned. Some of you have business contracts you're signing that have security components to it. Some of you take credit cards or have health-related information or do business in the European Union, or you're doing things in the defense, or you do work in New York or the UK. There's all these levels of compliance out there that you may or may not be in compliance with. And what does that mean? It might mean you're not covered by your insurance. It might mean that you're at risk for a lawsuit. It might mean you're at risk for who knows what if you're not in compliance. No one needs that kind of thing. And in most cases, what they're asking you to do is a lot of the best practices that I'm talking about here. So one of the things that's common in our world is managed security services. That's a service we provide. It's a service a lot of IT providers provide. These are the different technologies people use. Backup and disaster recovery services, firewalls, anti-spam, antivirus, endpoint detection. You can go through the list. So a lot of these things are products you buy. But like I said, it's not the product you buy. It's who's doing it and how they're doing it that makes all the difference. So while you need all of these things, having these things alone is not going to carry the day. It may help, but if they're not set up right, if they're not being managed, monitored, adjusted, configured properly, you can still have a problem. Remember, Palo Alto, their Global Protect product, a product designed specifically for security in mind, is now under active exploit. There's other blind spots out there. Internet of Things, those smart TVs. If you got one of those smart TVs and it's plugged into your network and you haven't updated the software, guess what? You've got a little security issue out there maybe. We get people that let clients, that let their team log in from their remote computers. Now we get there's a cost savings there and an ease of use kind of a thing. But if they're not managing those computers, what we call an untrusted computer, there could be potentially a blind spot there for you. Those QR codes that we all became very facile with during COVID to get the menus and such, you can just go to any website. You can Google, QR code generator, type in any website you want, and it'll generate a QR code for you. So it could be to the menu or it could be to a malicious website that looks like the menu. This is where your training comes in, your cyber awareness training. So these are the best practices. We've gone through them all. But really the best practice is get into action. Don't have this just be another webinar you went to. Have this be a webinar that actually makes a difference for your security of your systems, your company, your business, your team, your clients. Get on the calendar, make an appointment for yourself to go through these and see where you're at. Call us, call your IT provider, and let's have a conversation and see if there's anything on here where you've got some questions. Things that can be shored up. That journey, creating that journey together. So that's it. I went right up to 10 o'clock. I have a few more minutes for Q&A if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much. You're going to get a survey to let us know how we did. So please complete that. You'll also get a link to the presentation and to the YouTube video for that. And we appreciate you being here today. Spread the word. You know, you're part of the neighborhood watch now. You can't say you don't know. So be part of the team, be part of helping us, helping everyone, because when we all do it together, it makes a big, big difference. Creates more confidence in our ability to work and have our businesses run and have a secure economy. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Looks like spring is here. Summer is getting close. Things are blooming. Enjoy that. And we'll talk to you at the next webinar in May. Thanks so much.